Hello again, and welcome back to another edition of the Wiccan Conservative. Today, I would like to discuss the Parnas audio recording. I'm not sure how many people have heard about this because it seems to have made its biggest debut on Twitter. It was first brought to my attention through an Alyssa Milano tweet, and she had linked an article from the Rolling Stone, which I'll admit I did not go in and read because it's the Rolling Stone first and foremost. And last time I checked, I thought they did mainly music, so not sure what they're doing dabbling in politics, but here we are. So there's, this whole big debacle about Trump discussing with donors at a private dinner the potential firing of Yovanovitch, the ambassador to Ukraine, prior ambassador to Ukraine. And they released a clip where POTUS can be heard talking about getting rid of her. And she's got to go. She'll be fired tomorrow. Now, to me, when I first heard the clip, I had very little information about where it came from, how it was obtained, and it was pitched to these people as if it was some sort of private meeting between Trump and his staffers, and that it was something that he just kind of threw out of nowhere. It came on unprovoked, and eventually it mutated into a instance where they actually thought that they could get the people to believe that it was a hit on Yovanovitch. And obviously I had to do some research on this. We had to find out what was going on. Not that I would ever believe for a second that the president would be, stupid enough to come out and actually call for a hit or discuss the inner workings of his circle with somebody who isn't privy to the information or anything along those lines. So I believe it was the Daily Beast came out with the entire, I'll link the entire audio recording in the video description. And it's an hour and 23 minutes long, which at first struck me really funny because I thought, well, goodness, if they were talking for an hour and 23 minutes about firing people and doing things that would cover up their intentions, why not release the entire video off top? But apparently that wasn't the case. As we find with a lot of these sensationalized stories and people making opinions on cherry-picked clips, these are not real stories. So I wasted my time. And you know what? Honestly, I didn't waste my time. I didn't waste my time at all. I went and physically listened to all hour 23 minutes of this video. I listened to everything. And a couple things struck me funny. This is a dinner for his donors. I'm guessing a benefit dinner to say thank you. And when the clip starts rolling, you can tell it's mingling, it's small talk, it's people who have come to this yuppie affair, and they're, talking about what they're doing with their homes and all this, fancy high class stuff. So at first I'm like, okay, well, it's a little bit of a nothing burger here. And then they all sit down to dinner, and President Trump comes in and they start discussing golf and personal activities. He starts thanking, I believe it's Jack Nicholson's son or grandson. I can't, those were the parts I wasn't really interested in. And when it started to get to the meat and potatoes of discussion for dinner and what they were talking about, it's very clear to me, if you physically go and listen to this yourself, how concerned President Trump is, not only with the economy and how it's affecting the American people, but also striking the right type of deals and tax percentages and doing things that are beneficial to the people who do business with the United States, and also the United States businesses and how they are benefiting from the political actions that he's taking in foreign countries. And, when you talk about the steel industry, the gas industry, the oil industry, and you're asking actual business owners what their opinions are, what do they think would work best for their companies, what are their companies set at, what type of profit margins do they have to operate under, what types of business models would they be comfortable with having. When you're talking to these business owners and you're getting real feedback about the tariffs that you're putting into place and the price of steel and the price of oil and the quality of these products, you're actually going out. A lot of people will say, oh, well, he's not talking to an average citizen. He's talking to business owners. We need to realize POTUS represents the states as a whole. So if that business is big in a state, that's him doing his job. That's going and talking to the American people, because these people are bringing their products and services to you, and you in turn have to eat the cost on it. So, of course, a business is going to be out for profit. If you're not out for profit, it's no reason for you to be in business. That is the point of business, which is why the Democrats are attempting to destroy the idea of capitalism. But I think that it's the most productive way to get the best results for the American people, the consumers. We as consumers have a responsibility as well. We shouldn't be going out and paying for a crappy product and saying that, just because it has an apple on it, or just because it has a swoosh on it, or just because it has a distinctive logo on it, that it's better or superior to another product. That's not how we should be judging our spending habits. We need to be spending more fiscally responsibly, personally speaking, and budgeting our money. A lot of people in this country are completely over budget every single year and wondering why they're still in debt. And I was that person. I will say that, I wasn't paying attention to what I could live without. I wasn't paying attention to where I could cut corners. And when I did, my lifestyle changed completely. So to turn around and blame capitalism, first off, just irritates me immensely. Second, moving on through the dinner, the discussion remained the same, but a lot of different points came into play. So first, now that you understand who these people were and what they were doing there, it became relatively clear as the time went on. There's a whole reason why that this video, this audio, wasn't discussed past the 2 minutes of discussion on Yovanovitch. Going through the video, they described a game plan, if you will, what the best course of action would be concerning Ukraine. And it's further in the video, closer to the end than it is to the beginning, where, I'm not exactly clear if this was actually recorded by Parnas or if this was recorded by somebody who was friends and went to the dinner with Parnas. But them two are whispering and conspiring, and they're speaking a different language. First off, that's interesting to me, just because they had spoke English to everybody in the meeting, and now you're speaking a different language to whisper amongst each other, which it's a little conspiratorial. I'll give you that, because typically if your English is your second language, you will feel more comfortable speaking to your friends in your native tongue. So I'll leave that at that. But the whole time that the dinner is going on and they're making these business discussions and meetings, it seems like the main idea is to get Ukraine injected into the conversation. And POTUS is actually talking to a lot of different individuals in the dinner before he even acknowledges these people that are recording this audio. But they managed to get Ukraine injected into the discussion through the oil conversation that they have, how American oil is doing, why we are exporting at such a exponential rate, what the quality of oil is like compared to Saudi Arabia and other parts of the country. Other parts of the world that we are importing oil from. So they're kind of talking about that, and the discussion gets injected with Ukraine, and President Trump says something along the lines of, I didn't know that they had so much oil in Ukraine. And the table's like, oh yeah, absolutely. They're just being strangleholded by Russia and the war that's going on over there. And Russia's taking a big cut, and it's making it very difficult for them to build new refineries, and that they are, attempting to pretty much take over the region. Now that we all knew. And me personally, I didn't know that there was oil in Ukraine either. But it became very interesting conversation if you're looking for the right cues. So they start talking about what they can do to strengthen the Ukraine economy, not only by building pipelines and shutting Russia out of the region, but how to build them into a country that is more self-sufficient, which seems to be the whole idea of helping these countries. So many presidents before here have said that they want to help these countries, and all the humanitarians here in the United States, they want to help these countries. They want these people to be able to take care of themselves, but we're told they can't do it without our help. They can't do it without our help. Fine, I'll concede to that. Everybody needs a little bit of helping hand. But we've been helping these countries for decades upon decades to no avail. Now, my question is, if we're helping these countries and we're sinking American tax dollars into these countries, and these foreign officials are having their own officials, their own government entities blackmailed or extorted by the industries in their nation, and we have high-ranking members of our government, their children are on the boards of these companies, their children are employed in activities with these countries, why would anybody want to make that cash flow stop? And I'm a big Trump supporter, don't get me wrong, but I like to analyze the facts and the evidence here. So when you're talking about sending tax dollars over to a foreign country and helping them, and it comes out that these people's children could be benefiting, and then potentially the House representatives and the senators and our different aspects of our government could be benefiting from these relationships, I really start to question, why would you ever want to really help these people out? Why hasn't anybody else come up with such a simple solution? President Trump said, yeah, we really need to help these people out. We really need to build up their economy. We really need to make them self-sufficient. And if there's a ton of oil over there and there's a giant market for oil, why wouldn't we give them the tools to harness that energy and take advantage of it? We're doing the same thing here. You brought all these jobs back here, and it's working for us. We can see it working for us. So as the discussion evolves, of course, it's slipped in there by the recorders. Mind you, this wasn't like something that came up because Trump decided to ask them about, well, what's the inner workings like? He said, oh, what's the relationship like between Ukraine and the United States? What's how's life treating you guys over there? And the recorders brought it up that Yovanovitch was telling the Ukraine government not to listen to President Trump because he would be out of office soon. Now, lest you think that that makes absolutely no sense, think about it. The gentleman that was in office, what was it, Poroshenko, was in office. He was allowing Burisma to extort his government that was mainly accepting funds from the United States for aid. And we started questioning where the money was going. So there was an investigation into the extortion and the improper relationship between Ukraine and Burisma Holdings. When Biden found out about this, and he bragged about it, this is fact, they decided that the prosecutor was not going to get to the bottom of the corruption, so they fired him. Which would be okay if you hired somebody in his place, but that didn't happen either. The investigation went away, nobody asked any questions, and it was just assumed that, well, he was a corrupt prosecutor, and that's that. End of story. End of story. When Trump comes into office and President Zelensky ousts Poroshenko in, mind you, a victory that wasn't supposed to happen, they did not think that ex-Ukraine president was going to get ousted out of office. That was a surprise victory. So as Zelensky comes into office, obviously, it would be good business, good sense to ask him, hey, look, this happened. We're a little bit confused about why it happened. So on your end, you might want to do some house cleaning, some research before you move forward and get stuck in the same position. Because if the Ukrainian people were dissatisfied with the way that the ex-president did his job, it would stand to reason that if Zelensky came in and did the same thing, the Ukrainian people would still not be winning. They still would not have had any gain than having an election and ousting a corrupt politician. The power of the vote. So now we have this instance where the Democrats have prattled on and obviously, guys, the last 30-second recap video was a joke. There was a whole lot of information going out through the entire Democratic proceedings of the impeachment trial, and we've heard it all before. Why am I going to sit here and repeat something to you that you just spent the last 5 days recapping from 2 years ago when the Russia collusion hoax narrative was put out? We had all this information already. We knew everything, and we knew the conclusion of the Mueller report. So to be honest with you, I just hope you took it as a joke, as a parody. But anyways, when we talk about going into investigations and things to that effect, I think Chrisanne Hall said it the best. Her and JC sat on their live podcast. They talked to, frankly, I can't remember what the heck the name of his channel is, but Frankly Awesome or something, Frankly Truther, I'm not sure. If you go to Chrisanne Hall's YouTube page, you'll be able to see and get a link to the conversation that they had together. But her and JC did a clip alone where they brought up a really valid point. Whether you're on the right or you're on the left, you have to ask yourself, why is it being considered an impeachable offense to find out where tax dollars are going? Because JC said it best. He asked that, if you were a mafia member, and I'm paraphrasing, if you were a mafia member and you were out doing dirt and the president wanted to file charges against you, or somebody in your local office let's bring it down to a local level. Somebody in the Justice Department comes and finds out that you're this mafia member. All they have to do is go run for office, and then you don't have to worry about it because you can't have an investigation done on you. You just sat here for 5 days and told me that nobody's above the law. So how are you going to sit there and then tell me that, well, nobody's above the law, but you can't investigate somebody who's running for office? That completely baffles my mind. On top of that, and I want to say furthermore, how are you politically rivaled with somebody you've never ran against for office? How does that happen? I don't understand. So throughout the dinner, I think one of the most interesting things that I found was his actual thoughts of who his political rivals were. Throughout the video, throughout the audio, he said who he thought his biggest political rivals were. This came from his own lips, from his own mouth. He mentioned Hillary. He mentioned Obama. He mentioned Bernie. Yeah, he did mention the Bidens. Very bottom of the list. Very bottom of the list. So if you go back and you listen to the entire conversation, the entire recording, and I understand, trust me, it's hard to get all this information. It's hard to sit and listen to certain things, especially when it's such dry, boring, yuppie talk. I'm not a yuppie. I don't know if you noticed or not, but I'm not a yuppie. I don't like to talk about golf and profit margins and the best, numbers for the business, but I know a little about a lot of things. And when somebody comes up and says that, I thought Hillary Clinton was a good adversary, and if she would have picked Bernie Sanders as her VP, we would have been in some serious trouble. That's so telling. That's so telling. And look at what Hillary's doing now, trying to push Bernie out of the nomination. Personally, I don't want Bernie to take the nomination. I think he's got a very strong base, and I'm concerned with the way the youth would vote in a Trump-Bernie situation. I'm very concerned because they're disillusioned with socialism, and the man's a very good speaker. So to me, it is who it is. Put up whoever you want to put up for a Democratic nomination. We'll fight the battle regardless. But to take a 2-second fleeting clip about Yovanovitch's offhand comments, and then what was obviously, the heart of the conversation is, it was a joke. It was a joke that, we'll have her fired tomorrow. Then you go in and realize that this dinner happened almost a year before she was let go. That's the punchline here. He didn't fire her the next day. If he did, then you'd have a case. Then you'd have something to say, oh, look, he did exactly what he said he was going to do. No, somebody made an accusation. I'm sure he did his due diligence. And based upon what Zelensky said about Yovanovitch from his own testimony, if you will, through the transcripts in the call, she didn't like Zelensky either. She had an allegiance to the prior administration. Which brings me back to, if there's cash flow coming in and everybody's in the loop, why would you want to stop it? That's the bigger question here. Why would you want to stop it? You would do everything humanly possible to make sure that didn't happen. You don't believe me? You got a different take? Go watch, go listen. Find out for yourself. Listen to what he said. You tell me. You tell me what you think. What you would have said in the setting that it was in. and who President Trump really has at heart. Because remember, he knew he was being recorded. This wasn't for cameras, wasn't for show, wasn't for something to boast or brag about later. Ask yourselves a couple questions. Think critically, please. Oh, and catch me live tweeting, because at 1 o'clock we start this whole shenanigans again. And I've become fond of tweeting during the impeachment hearings. And I just want your comments. I want to know how you feel about the situation. I'll catch you guys on the next one.